Greetings and welcome, or welcome back as the case may be. Today's Tuesday, so it's a day to read something that I've written. So on that note, I'm going to say that this is going to be an excerpt from mortal.exe, my first novel. That will be, it's been uploaded. It's ready to go. It will be available come January 1st. And so here's an excerpt from chapter 1. In this chapter, Mel has arrived at college. She has moved partially into her room and gone off with her new roommate, Sarah, through the freshman convocation. And so we're going to pick up where they come back to the room. So with that in mind, here's an excerpt from mortal.exe. It was nearly midnight when Mel and Sarah returned to the room. They were exhausted and leaning against each other, but still quietly singing the final song played at the event. They fumbled for the keys and had to straighten away from each other so that Mel could find hers and get it in the lock. When the light came on, the two stopped and stared before bursting into laughter. Chests and crates filled the room. Most were stacked about Mel's bed, but with barely enough space to walk through the room itself. "I'll get this straightened out tomorrow," Mel said between giggles. "It's okay. Your parents just want to be sure that you have everything." The words made Sarah's expression even out for a bit, but then she gave Mel a hug and wished her good night before clambering up the ladder into her bed. Shoes and pants dropped to the floor as Sarah scurried under the sheets. Mel shook her head and looked around at the stuff in the room. Her eyes were drawn to two features. Two pictures framed the desk. On the left was with a sheaf of wheat, propped nearby, yes, wheat, stood a picture of Mount Olympus, a gift and a message from her mother. The other picture, on the right, was her father's message, depicting a great cavern with rock columns, stalactites, and stalagmites throughout. A cool breeze came from the picture. She'd have to do something about that before someone noticed. For now, though, she was tired. It had been a great day. She had a friend and a room of her own that wasn't all stone and chill. When she turned out the main light, Sarah mumbled a thank you, and Mel nearly started laughing again. She took off her dress and climbed up into bed. Her head crinkled a folded sheet of parchment that had been left on the pillow. Despite the dark of the room, she could read the crisp, clean, precise lines of her mother's hand. "Melonticos, we didn't know what clothes you wanted, so we had everything brought. If it's not suitable, send it back through the usual channels. We've also left a letter of credit in the form of one of the cards people are using these days. Use it to purchase what you need. Above all else, though, remember who you are. Remember, the equinox is coming. You will be expected to attend. Visit soon. It's not as if you can't do so at any time you choose. Corey." "Don't you need a light for that?" Sarah sounded sleepy, but her eyes reflected the faint glow of the street lights coming through the window. Mel shook her head and refolded the paper. "No, it's all right. I'll read it tomorrow." Sarah nodded and closed her eyes. Mel tossed the letter onto her desk. Maybe Sarah would like to go on a shopping trip tomorrow. The boxes and chests were likely full of flowing dresses and clothes suitable for an ancient Greece reenactment, not for a modern college scene. Mel's head settled onto her pillow, and she sighed, smiling faintly. A boom shook the whole building. Mel sat up with a jolt. The fading red afterimage in her eyes attested how bright the flash of lightning was, but it didn't account for the orange light that now filtered into the room. "What was that?" asked Sarah in a shriek, echoed by other voices up and down the hall. Her eyes were wide, and her blanket was clutched under her chin. Mel tried to give her a reassuring smile, but it faltered. She knew what it was. The flare of power was unmistakable. Still, she climbed out of bed and crept to the window in the flickering orange light that danced outside. Peeking through the slats of the blinds, she saw the tree outside was on fire. The flames traced a jagged line from the crest to the base, but they were spreading. She felt the surge of divine power again and turned away, squeezing her eyes shut as another bolt of lightning struck the tree with a building shaking roar. Shrieks sounded in the aftermath, and a burst of rain rattled the window. Mel darted over to her fallen dress and pulled it back on. "Get up and get dressed," she said. "The fire alarm will be sounding any moment." "The building's on fire?" Sarah still sat wide-eyed on the bed. "No, but the tree outside was struck by lightning, and it's on fire." Sarah's eyes flickered toward the window. "Huh?" She lowered the blanket, but still sat there. The blanket was snatched up again when the insistent buzz of the fire alarm filled the room. "Get dressed, now!" Mel shook Sarah's arm. "Come on, we've got to go now." Sarah stared at Mel, but then shook herself and nodded. She jumped down from her lofted bed and scrambled into her discarded clothing. A solid knock shook the door as she was slipping on her shoes. "Come on, everybody out!" Someone shouted from the hall. The knock was repeated on the door down the hall. "Guess we better go." Sarah seemed more in control as she moved quickly out the door. In the hall, a steady stream of people flowed toward the main entrance. Mel and Sarah joined them. Outside, the downpour continued. "Really?" Sarah growled under her breath when she was instantly soaked. "The fire in the middle of the night isn't bad enough?" Mel didn't say anything. She huddled against the cold and wet, wrapping her arms around herself, taking a moment to dash water out of her eyes, as futile as the gesture was. Mel thought, "I'm sorry you're unhappy, grandfather, but I'm staying. I'm not tucking my tail and going back to the underworld." In answer, another flash of lightning lit up the night, and a roar of thunder elicited another round of shrieks. Mel just cringed and huddled into herself. And that's the end of chapter 1. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you're looking forward to seeing mortal.exe as much as I'm hoping you'll be there to see it too. So, on that note, have a good day. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.